Goblin Town. BTC sinks lower despite the announcement of a US strategic reserve. What's going on, and is there worse to come? White House Summit. Crypto industry leaders meet with Trump and his team to discuss the future. Here's what they decided. At the mercy of macro. The downtrend in crypto prices is being driven by external factors. We examine what these factors are and what the economic outlook might be. And of course, we bring you last week's top performers, tweets of the week, dates for your diary, and much more besides. This is the Coin Bureau News, live.
GM, Coin Bureau, Crypto Fam, and welcome to another episode of the Coin Bureau Weekly News live stream. I'm Nick, of course, joined by Guy. Guy, how you doing?
Live from Goblin Town, everyone.
Town.
Nick doesn't think that Goblin Town is a real thing. You think it's some Lord of the Rings thing?
I think it is. I think it's also an NFT collection.
Okay. Well, put your answers in the chat. Yeah. I don't know the
very cringe NFT collection. Probably very fitting for the market conditions, I'm sure.
we certainly do seem to be, if not in Goblin Town,
on our way
the ring
there.
Road.
Exactly. Yeah.
On the outskirts of Goblin Town.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of stuff to cover this week, of course. Lots of macros driving a lot of it. Obviously, we had the news last week about the Digital Assets Summit at the White House, which was a bit of a nothing burger, but we'll get to that. Obviously, let's start off with the most important news of the day, Bitcoin's price, which the last time I checked, it's now stabilizing at about $83,000. Now, thankfully, it's not dropping the moment of the start of the stream. What we're going to do is cast your mind back to last week and just have a think about what happened, because I think that it's easy to forget exactly how volatile these markets are and what exactly happened with the macro and all the news. But if you'll recall, cast your mind back to Sunday last week, we had that tweet, that post, that Truth Social post about the crypto strategic reserve.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Bitcoin and all these, exactly a week ago. Can you imagine? And crypto rallied, massively on that Sunday news. And we can see the chart over here now. It shows you 1 second. So there you can see up annotated there. We've got the Trump Truth Social post on the Sunday evening, rallies high, and then comes Monday morning, and Trump releases the tariffs against Canada, Mexico, and China. All says they go in ahead, and we completely round trip and go below where it was.
Nobody said it was easy.
No one said it was easy. But what is interesting is that Sunday evening, and we talked about this in the news last week, we opened up one of the biggest CME gaps ever in history.
You were talking about this in last week's stream. Yeah.
Over 8,000. And then generally, according to theory, the CME gap is usually closed. And it also happened to be the fastest CME gap close ever, because we closed it on the same day when Bitcoin fell back and closed that gap. So, we closed the CME gap on the same day because of the tariffs. Then comes Tuesday, tariff fears are still lingering, although there is a bit of a recovery in the markets because Howard Lutnick goes on news and he says, well, these could be delayed. There could be some exemptions for goods under the US and Mexico-Canada trade agreement, maybe some auto parts.
Do you get the impression that they're kind of making this tariff stuff up as they go?
I don't think that one foot is communicating with the other. I don't know if Lutnick is definitely on top of what Trump is saying. Now, Trump is basically shooting at the hip and he's coming out and trying to corral them. And it's kind of like, say something crazy, then bring it back, dial it back. Because
this was supposed to be this certainly was a feature of the last Trump administration. Like, it was very chaotic, and Trump has since admitted that he didn't really, he was kind of unprepared for it, appointed a lot of people who turned out to be no good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the whole sort of thing about this Trump administration was that it was, much more organized. They really knew what they were doing this time around. But like all this talk of the tariffs, they're kind of, they're saying one thing one day and another thing another day. I mean, it kind of makes me think this is either completely chaotic and as you say, no one is talking to each other, or it's a calculated move to sow uncertainty and tank the market for reasons that we're, I think, going to get to later. But it just seems, these guys know how markets work.
Massive uncertainty, that's for sure.
Crazy.
It is partly a negotiating tactic. But the markets did slightly recover on Howard Lutnick's comments. They recovered again on Wednesday as well. Then on Thursday, we got the news breaking that Trump would potentially be signing an executive order related to the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So obviously this created a lot of excitement. And then the Bitcoin rallied on Thursday, and then we got to the actual strategic reserve announcement, the executive order. and markets classically dumped. They dumped. Yeah, so this is because of the fact that I assume many were still expecting there to be some sort of a strategic reserve that would accumulate Bitcoin, which I think we'd all been saying was not going to happen. Right?
Yeah, I think anyone with a sort of realistic outlook was like, yeah, any strategic reserve is almost certainly going to contain what they already hold. But the idea of them going out into the market and accumulating more is, has been pretty far-fetched.
Yeah, exactly.
For a while.
And we'll get on to the rest of the strategic reserve a bit when we talk about that in that section. But then on Friday, we moved to Friday. Tariff fears are still lingering. The NASDAQ was close to hitting technical correction. And the crypto was still holding out some hope here for the digital assets summit, what they were going to have during the day, at the end of the day. Unfortunately, nothing more was really revealed from that.
There was a lot of misinformation flying around about the summit, wasn't there? Because people were leaking, leaking supposed guest lists all over Twitter. There was lots of speculation about who would be attending, who wouldn't be attending. You had people on Twitter sort of, posting pictures of themselves in Washington. So you're like, well, they're definitely going. And again, there was uncertainty, like no one really knew. And, you just don't know, you don't know which sources to trust.
Exactly. And to be honest, if you watch it, which we'll get onto in a bit, but it was just very much of thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
But it was just basically, that's what it was. Anyway, so the results of all of that last week, this is an interesting fact for you guys. We had the biggest weekly candle decline. So we're going to put up the chart here. There you can see that was the biggest weekly candle fall on the weekly ever in terms of dollar value. So last week was just we started out very high from the Trump euphoria and the strategic reserve and then collapsed.
Wow. Brutal.
Yeah, and it was terrible for other reasons as well, because last week we had the ETF outflows, right?
Oh yeah, these have been really bad. I mean, that's the continuation of the week previous, wasn't it? Yeah.
Did have one positive day, 22 million.
Oh.
There's a glimmer of hope. There's a glimmer of hope.
Well,
the glass is not empty. It's got a drop of water in it.
Okay. Meanwhile, so ETF flows are really bad. Open interest as well is struggling too. Is that 7-month low? Yeah,
7-month low, and this is for the CME open interest. So that's generally institutions usually in getting in buy CME futures, and then we also have the same on the perpetuals, offshore perpetuals. Notional open interest is near a low since last seen since September. So this is obviously because of just lack of bullish sentiment or uncertainty right now, and this uncertainty creates a lot of volatility. And another thing we saw last week was the weekly realized volatility spiked to its highest level since, I think if that's August last year, if you'll recall, was just after Germany jeeted their bags.
Yeah. This was, I remember that well. So, gosh, I mean, and that's a huge spike, isn't it? I mean, it's been really flat compared to that previous spike.
Exactly.
So this is volatility.
Realized volatility. So what we've actually realized, it's not just in crypto as well. In TradFi markets, this is the MOVE index. So for those who don't know, the MOVE index measures volatility on U.S. government bond interest rates, right? The Bank of America MOVE index, it's at its highest level this year.
Any good news?
There is.
Have you got nice charts?
I've managed to find.
Far.
I've got some good news, guy. Don't worry. On the macro front, the DXY is continuing its downtrend. The US dollar. Look at that collapse those past few days.
That is a downtrend. Okay.
So generally, this is considered generally good for risk assets in isolation. There's a lot of other stuff which we're going to get onto, but generally, a declining dollar is good for risk assets.
Okay, so there's that bit of good news. And we've also got whales have been accumulating as well.
Exactly. Right? The 30-day change in whale wallets has increased, which therefore means, it seems like big whales are accumulating at these levels. I think that, generally the accumulation zone was around 80 to 75 to 80K, especially last week. Now the question is, where do we go to now? Well, I should let you know, guys, just before the stream started, Michael Saylor announced that they will be raising $21 billion through a Series A perpetual preferred stock offering. So he just says, like, I don't care what's happening. Because last week, you'll notice, guys, Saylor didn't announce a buy. And he's like, I need more money. He must have been so like, I don't have cash to buy. I need more cash. I'm going to go and issue debt to buy it. Or this preferred stock, he needs to go and issue more equity to buy it. And this is exactly what he's done, 21 billion. He came out of that with that White House meeting saying, there's no ways the US government is going to be, I'm going to accumulate Bitcoin. And I think MicroStrategy holds double the Bitcoin the US government does.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about the US government's Bitcoin holdings because they are not all they seem, or not. I think there's some important things people are forgetting about Uncle Sam's stack of BTC. Did you see the footage of Saylor at the meeting?
Yes, of course. We'll get onto that. He was very, natural autistic.
He had his orange tie on.
Orange tie on, look at his phone, taking the phone pictures and everything. Classic memeable moment, which we will get onto. And
he was sitting next to Brian Armstrong, who looked really uncomfortable.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see that, Brian Armstrong? I don't know, like just the bits I saw when Saylor was with his phone. Brian was sort of sitting there like.
Yeah, I don't know if you take a phone out and take pictures from it. I don't know. Saylor, let Saylor be Saylor. Quickly looking at some charts. This is the daily chart of Bitcoin. What's interesting is we closed just below. So that's the 200-day moving average and the daily chart of Bitcoin. Prior days, we've fallen through the 200-day moving average, although we closed above it. Yeah. Unfortunately, yesterday was the first day where we closed below the 200-day moving average. Oh. And we have to try and see if we're going to recover it. So same thing we did back in October last year. But it generally means that momentum is slightly slowing. So that's on the bad side. On the flip side, we did this evening have another CME gap that did open. And this CME gap is about a $3,000 gap. So generally down on the upside, you want to close these gaps. So we could potentially close this unfilled CME gap. And there are some liquidation levels that are closer at the 87K level or 84K level than they are on the downside. So generally market makers, the notion is we'll try and push the prices to try and liquidate those shorts at the $84,000 level there we've got from all the short positions. 84 to 85,000 is more likely, at least if you believe the theory that market makers are going to push prices towards liquidation levels. But yeah, that's all that happened. Obviously, this week there's important macro data, which we'll talk about. And then, of course, CPI numbers, which are going to drive a lot of the crypto prices as well. So the story is macro.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about macro in a bit more detail later on. Shall I just, do you want a quick sentiment check, Nick, before we move on?
What's it like?
We've got people tuning in from the trench.
The trench?
Yeah. Okay. Not the trenches, the trench. There's only one trench now.
The Marianas Trench. Down, their bags are so deep, they've fallen so deep into the ocean to the Mariana Trench. I'm in the singular trench.
Yeah, things are so bad. There's only one trench left. Yeah. We don't even have plural trenches anymore. Oxford Road Coach, a long-time viewer, is maybe not for much longer. Give me a reason to live. Come on, Oxford Road Coach, get out on the river, get some fresh air.
Suicide hotline just below, guys.
Start pulling on those oars. That's what you need. Good grief.
What oars?
Well, he's a road coach.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I wonder what was going through Nick's head there. Perhaps we'll never know. Meanwhile, Crypto Surfer says Bitcoin is dead. If Bitcoin is dead, what's happening to Waltz?
Oh, I don't want to know, man.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Bijan has some rather more chilled advice. Enjoy the ride. We've been in worse situations. Breathe, relax, and that shall pass. I like that.
So wise, yeah. Calm, collected, fair, yeah.
Bijan, I'm imagining you sitting there just being very zen at the moment. I think that's a good state of mind to be in. Meanwhile, Luda Corleone says, "See you all in 2029." Game over.
Wow.
2029.
Damn, wow. That long to recover, bro.
Wow, that's going to be a long one. And we have a theory here on how decision making is being made in the White House. I think Trump uses the thrown burger on the wall spatter to decide most things. So what he just throws a burger at the wall, and if it sticks, that's a policy.
And he basically reads the signs, kind of like paint splatter. I don't know.
Maybe.
Anyways.
Well, yes. So that's a measure of how sentiment in the chat is doing. People are, some people are despairing. Some people are holding up. I mean, I'm kind of guessing if you're tuning in to watch the best crypto live stream in the world, then you must still have some sentiment left, unless you're like doom watching or hate watching or whatever you call it. Do you think anyone's hate watching? Come on, guys. If you're hate watching, really got to do.
There's other channels for that. There's other channels for that. We're not here. We're not blowing opium smoke. We're not deceiving you. We're giving you the news as it is, right?
That is true.
Well, and there are bullish signs. There are light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully it's not a train that's going to kill you, but
a light at the end of the tunnel is quite often a train coming the other way. Yeah. Okay.
The deer in the headlights. Is the Bitcoin going to recover? Don't forget.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about this this White House summit and this Bitcoin strategic reserve. Now, if you think about it, really, the journey we've been on over the last few months, ever since I guess since Trump came out pro crypto, since Trump walked on stage at the Bitcoin conference last year and started talking about strategic reserves and started being all pro Bitcoin, we've kind of been on this journey that I think gradually sort of coalesced into leading towards this idea that his administration is going to be the most pro crypto ever, which is true so far, even though the chart is kind of suggesting otherwise. And then obviously people have been fixated on this idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, ever since then as well. And now we have it. We've kind of got two of the things perhaps we arguably wanted most. We have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The details of that are nuanced, so we're going to discuss that. And we had crypto industry leaders from the United States, from the US crypto industry, in the White House, in the president, in the presence of the president, talking about crypto. So this should have been, and I think in retrospect it will be, a really pivotal moment. And yet, crypto sentiment is in the toilet.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Crypto sentiment moves so quickly, like the speed of light. But let's just get into the details exactly what happened, because it's not just the White House summit, which is obviously the strategic reserve on the executive order. And we summarized this on our Twitter account a few days ago in terms of the exact specifics, the high level. It's obviously the key points here are that it's a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So unfortunately, no Cardano, no Ripple, no Solana, much to their disappointment. It will also will only hold the Bitcoin that the US government has seized through civil and criminal forfeitures. It will potentially have a digital asset stockpile, which will hold all the other assets seized that may not be Bitcoin. And it will also not be purchasing any new Bitcoin unless there is some sort of a budget neutral strategy which can do this, which they can use to do this. So those are the key points about it. And obviously, in terms of, now it's important to note, obviously, with regards to, you mentioned this earlier as we started, the US government's holdings of Bitcoin, right? It has 17 billion, although over half of that
it belongs to Bitfinex.
Bitfinex,
yeah. This is something that hasn't been discussed an awful lot, I think. The US government has accumulated its crypto by basically confiscating it from the likes of Silk Road and other criminals. Razzle Khan and what was her husband's name? Dutch.
No, it's Ilya Liechtenstein.
Yeah, but I think his nickname was, he went by the name Dutch.
Cool. Okay.
Which I think is Arnold Schwarzenegger's name in Predator. That's a complete non sequitur, isn't it? Anyway, so basically all the US's crypto is basically stuff that it's seized as a result of criminal proceedings. But so I mean, at some point, it has got to give currently 10 billion of that back to Bitfinex, you would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And Bitfinex, so obviously, guys, if you don't remember, Bitfinex, in order to fill their hole, they gave this Leo token, and this Leo token is like an exchange token. And I think that if Bitfinex is given the funds back, they'll potentially use the Bitcoin to buy back the Leo token. So, the impact on the Bitcoin's price is hard to determine right now. But another thing about that chart, you'll also notice that like 98% of it is Bitcoin, right? That's within the US government's, ownership. And this is interesting because it comes back to the question around ADA, XRP, and, Solana. Even after the announcement came that the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve was not going to have any altcoins, their price is still sustained.
Yeah, they held up quite well.
They held up quite well there. This is even after that. And it's curious. And this brings us back to, I mean, this is a big rabbit hole. We don't want to go down it. But what on earth what was the point of mentioning those coins in that post? And they were not going to be included.
Yeah. And I mean, so much of the debate that I've been listening to on reading through on Twitter, listening to on podcasts over the weekend, so much of the debate was around, yes, you can just about, even if you're not necessarily pro strategic reserve, you can see the kind of rationale for a Bitcoin strategic reserve. No one that I heard speaking could make any sort of sense of why a reserve of XRP, Sol, ADA, and indeed any other load of altcoins was really all that called for. It was really needed.
It wasn't. And, there's different ways in which you can interpret this. David Sachs says he thinks, it was because it's just every single top coins, and without non-stable coin in the top 10 or top 5 they included.
It's not BNB.
It's not BNB, which I don't know, we do know that Ripple was a big donor, they donated a lot to the Trump campaign. Anyways, let's not be that as it may. Another question, of course, is this question around the budget neutral strategies that the US government could employ in order to accumulate more Bitcoin. And I came up with a few ideas. There's also these been talked about by others. One is using the funds from the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is controlled by the Treasury, to control currency fluctuations.
Okay.
Selling some of the gold reserves to buy Bitcoin. Howard Lutnick has said that the US could monetize the asset side of the US balance sheet.
Gold is kind of near all-time highs.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
they wouldn't
just
diversified to digital gold, guys. A sovereign wealth fund funded by tariff revenues. That is something that Trump has said he maybe wants to consider. A sovereign wealth fund. A special visa that would allow wealthy foreigners to invest in the Bitcoin reserve and receive residency. Orange card to Donald Trump's gold card.
Okay. Itself an extension of the green card.
Exactly.
Basically going to bring in more colors of card.
Exactly. Just numerous different colors. Yeah. As long as you've got money, it's all good.
I like that. I'm very interested in that one, number 6, using excess energy to mine BTC and allocating it to the reserve.
I mean, if he said he wants all the Bitcoin to be mined in the USA.
Yeah.
So
we're sort of not quite understanding the decentralization narrative of Bitcoin there. That's actually one of my outside, not bets if you like, but one of my sort of long predictions for this year is that maybe the way that the US gets this accumulates this BTC, gets this added exposure that is talking about, maybe some nation state mining enterprise goes into operation. That's my long shot. So there are ways to do it. That's the important thing. It's not just a case of using taxpayer dollars to buy BTC. There are quote unquote budget neutral ways to do this. Not everyone was impressed though.
Yeah, exactly. This Charles Edwards from Capriole Investments criticized the decision as underwhelming and described it as simply rebranding existing assets, quote, calling it a pig in lipstick. And the price kind of agreed with him to the extent that it didn't move much. Although, there was some bullishness from Coinbase, wanted to hire 1,000 jobs in the US in crypto.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure Elon Musk is planning to lay off many more than that, so you should imagine there'll be plenty of people to fill those jobs.
Yeah, one has to question what's the technical skills if you worked in the government. Did you think US aid people would be good employees for Coinbase?
Maybe
Coinbase is going to start its philanthropic arm, filled with US. And then, of course, Michael Saylor came out and he shares his $100 trillion crypto strategy at the White House. So this is really interesting. He proposes that the US adopt a clear crypto regulatory framework and buy 5 to 25% of Bitcoin by 2035 to potentially generate enormous long-term returns. But I mean, Saylor himself, speaking of Saylor, he has become a meme. That's us last week. That's Saylor last week. That's the whole entire digital asset summit. That is it.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, he's well, I mean, a roller coaster of emotions there. So I mean, coming out of this, as I said at the beginning of this bit, we kind of got everything we wanted in a way, and it's hard to get away from the feeling that really this whole summit thing, the strategic reserve thing, is not, or basically hodling what they've already got.
No.
The summit itself, I didn't really hear anything other than talk of strategic reserves. I didn't hear anything particularly concrete come out. I didn't get the sense that anything much was decided. It seemed to me like a kind of sop to all these crypto entities, to the crypto industry as a whole that had donated so much money to the Trump campaign. Thank you for your donations. Come to the White House, have some canapes, meet the president, and then give us some more money on your way out.
Yeah, I think so. But it's one of these things also, expectations versus reality, and also expectation management. I think that unfortunately, potentially the Trump admin was, putting expectations right over here when, even if you told us last year exactly what would be happening in the digital asset summits and all this kind of stuff, you would have been like, wow, that's insane, mad, crazy. But, there's so much stuff that's happened since his election or since his inauguration that kind of like, it's overshadowed that.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Tom?
Let's have a look now at the walls of fame and shame.
The weekly rise and falls. Here's the wall.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, yes, the walls of fame and shame. We're going to start with the wall of shame.
Oh
my word! Oh my word!
That is amazing. Holy shit!
I did not see that.
That actually happened, man.
I did not see that. That's just another day in the Coin Bureau office.
Guy, don't come and beg for foreign aid, bro.
Oh,
where's 200 billion? Where's the 100 billion we sent you?
Is this because I haven't said thank you?
Yeah, why have you not said thank you? Where's all the thanks you're not giving us?
It's not easy.
All the crypto alpha I've given you. You just come here, you ask for more. Where's my thanks?
I'm just pleased they didn't have me as JD Vance with an enormous face. That's such a bizarre
for next guys. Idea for next time, guys. He likes to meme.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at the walls of shame and fame. Now, amidst all the talk of White House crypto summits and strategic reserves and prices in the toilet and yada, 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 last week was also notable because not a particularly long forgotten face, but an old friend decided to pop their head above the parapet. We heard from none other than Sam Bankman-Fried. Jeez. Yeah, there he is. Again, someone who I think probably deserves a permanent spot on the wall of shame. Yeah. This was extraordinary. So he popped up doing an interview from prison with Tucker Carlson.
It's insane. It's insane.
It was crazy. And I mean, I watched a bit of it. What kind of disturbs me a little bit is that I'm already getting a sense from looking at Twitter, even from some WhatsApp groups that I'm in, that the SBF redemption arc appears to be already bending towards, he wasn't such a bad guy after all. I've seen people defending him, people saying 25 years is too long, people saying it wasn't a violent crime, blah, 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 blah. I cannot believe we are even talking about the fact that, Sam Bankman-Fried, maybe he was treated a little harshly. This is a guy who pretty much did more damage to the crypto industry than any other human being 100%. In history.
And he wasn't apologetic. He still isn't apologetic. He's still out there. He's still coming at the same playbook.
He's still saying he didn't do anything wrong.
He's still saying it. I mean,
it's just extraordinary. So, so Sam Bankman-Fried is on the wall of shame. Now, what was really difficult this week, this shows you how tough things are at the moment. It was really difficult to find someone for the wall of fame who in crypto had a really good week. So we decided to stick with this Sam Bankman-Fried interview, and we decided that the wall of fame is whoever then sent him to solitary confinement straight after.
Well, that's the good AI take at the Guy God, who
oh my God, that's me.
That kind of looks like Paolo, a little bit like Paolo as well, but. But what I find most crazy, okay, so yes, they put him in solitary confinement, good. But here's the most crazy point. He's there in prison, in the confines of a prison, on a government device, and he still has, you guys are not seeing him conduct a 40-minute interview with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you?
How did he get clear? Because as far as I understand it, those Zoom calls or that part of the prison is so as prisoners can go and speak to their legal teams.
So what they think, like his lawyer looks like Tucker Carlson, like your lawyer is Tucker Carlson. What do you think? Like literally, at what point do you at 40 minutes?
I think the guard was like, "Hey, that looks a bit like who's that?" Well, that's my lawyer. Yeah, he looks like Tucker Carlson.
He's his doppelganger.
He's really cheap because of that. Like, yeah. It's a big thing for him.
I mean, mental, bro. Yeah. I mean, so honestly, like, this is crazy, and makes you wonder why, like, the likes of they didn't see what happened to Epstein, and who knows? Maybe even like Diddy's in the MDC there as well, like mixing up a new mixtape, not being stopped by the guards or anything.
Yeah, I know. What's Diddy up to? If Sam Bankman-Fried is able to jump on a Zoom interview with Tucker Carlson, what's Diddy getting?
He started a new freak off party with SBF, special guest.
Actually, SBF said that he'd met Diddy and he'd been very kind.
Very kind. Ooh, what does that mean?
I do not want to know. Yeah, just extraordinary. I kind of love the fact that in this industry, just when things get really bad, someone just pops up. Hi there, and this time it was Sam Bankman-Fried. There's always just a little twist. I love it. Yes, so yeah, that's the walls of fame and shame. Now, let's move on and talk about what is driving crypto prices at the moment. I guess the good news is that we are not currently, everything that's happening, all the bad price action in crypto is not because of some crypto specific disaster. We haven't, touch wood, seen a DeFi protocol implode. We haven't, touch wood, seen a major exchange go under, anything like that. This isn't a crypto specific crisis. This is all due to macro. Exactly, yeah. And macro, obviously, Bitcoin has increasingly become a macro asset. Its correlation to stock indices, particularly the NASDAQ, is near is at highs. And it's trading as a risk-on asset. And it is then getting swept up in all of this. So we'll go and break it down and take a look at a lot of the macro dashboard in terms of the things that are happening and what's driving the markets and where it could go. So obviously the talk of the town is what's going on with tariffs, right? And we know last week Trump introduced those tariffs on Monday against Canada, Mexico, and both Canada and China, and Canada, Mexico, and China have said they would retaliate. So the trade war begins. And then on Tuesday, they delayed the auto tariffs for auto parts and other goods under the USMCA. So that's good. But then on Friday, Trump threatened additional tariffs on Canada. It's so scattergun, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, another 250% on dairy.
Yeah, I think there's a personal. Yeah, he took it quite personally with Trudeau. I heard that a lot of this, because Canada did get a lot of the ire from Trump, especially compared to the likes of Mexico and China, and because apparently there's personal history. Between
him and Trudeau.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it goes back to 2018. Apparently, I was reading.
Okay, I mean they are kind of certainly on the political spectrum, absolute polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, so this is personal against Trudeau.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's obviously concerns around the impacts these tariffs could have on inflation. I remember we shared this chart like 2 weeks ago. This is the inflation expectations of 5 to 10 year consumer inflation.
Yeah.
It's at a 30-year high.
Still can't get over this. Yeah, this is so crazy. Yeah, it's worth showing again.
Yeah. And of course, this brings us to the inflation point, speaking of which. So 2 weeks ago, we had PCE numbers. So the PCE is obviously the Personal Consumption Expenditure Index, which is the Fed's preferred inflation measure. It came in lower than the lowest it had been in over a year, but it's still above its 2% target, which is obviously the Fed is targeting. But key will be coming this week, which we'll be talking about in a bit, is obviously the CPI numbers, right?
Yeah.
So that's coming on Wednesday.
Okay, so that's something to watch out for. Because I've seen data from Truflation that says that is claiming that inflation is actually a lot lower. But as we were talking about earlier in the day, expectations count for so much, don't they? It may well be that inflation, real inflation, is only at 1.5%. But if people think it's at 3.5, then that's what's more important, because people then adjust their, wholesalers or retailers will adjust their prices accordingly.
Inflation expectations are much more deadly. Perception is reality. In terms of what this means for interest rates, well, no rate cuts from the Fed are thought at least until June. So it's pricing in June for the rate cuts. So that's the date to look out for. Although investors are expecting the interest rate probabilities in terms of the number of cuts expected has skyrocketed over February. So people are expecting the Fed to cut a lot, and consensus about three times.
So H2 this year, that's what could give us hope.
Hopefully,
in terms of rate cuts.
Well, that's rate cuts. I mean, the question in terms of other sorts of liquidity, we'll get onto in a bit. Yeah. But I don't think the Trump and Bessent, they're not focused on short-term rates. They focused on long-term interest rates, specifically the 10-year interest rate. And they've been using numerous different methods to bring it down, cutting budgets, cutting deficit spending, potentially looking at refinancing, looking at foreign buyers, bank buyers, adjusting the bank reserve ratios, all these kinds of things. Bessent meets regularly once a week with Powell, apparently.
Okay.
Like him and Powell are working behind the scenes to work on interest rates and interest rate expectations. So to that end, he's had success at look at the 10-year rate. And it's coming down. And this is in terms of the strategy, the underlying strategy, more people, for the average person, the average voter in the US, they don't care about the likes of Nvidia, what Nvidia stock is doing. They don't care I'm sorry to say, guys, they don't care what the price of Bitcoin is doing. I know, shock and horror.
Sacrilege.
The average guy in the swing state does not care about the price of Bitcoin. They care about the cost of living and also the mortgage costs, interest rate costs, or credit card costs. So this is the goal of bringing down the 10-year rate.
And there is talk, isn't there? You mentioned it, you touched on it earlier. There is talk of this, I think it's about $7 trillion worth of debt refinancing.
Exactly.
And obviously, if they want to refinance that debt at the lowest possible rate.
Potentially 4% comes in the next few months. There's a big treasury refinancing, exactly. Okay. Now, why is this important for crypto and Bitcoin and risk assets? It's because obviously it drives into liquidity. Right. Mm-hmm. And global liquidity is the single best indicator of where Bitcoin is going and how cryptocurrency prices are going to react. Right. In fact, over the long term, since 2014, the correlation between Bitcoin as price and global liquidity flows is about 90 to 94%. This is very high. So you can kind of tell exactly where Bitcoin is going based on global liquidity. Now, this is really interesting. This is a chart from. And I will say this chart is outdated, obviously, because the price
has gone lower than that. I hate to break it to you.
But this is interesting. This is a chart from 10x Research, they're a really good research shop, and it basically shows, you can see they're mapped Bitcoin's price with global liquidity, and you can kind of see how it's followed it almost, precisely.
Yeah, that leg lower is perfectly matched with liquidity.
Exactly. Now liquidity's come down a bit, although it's projected out to increase, obviously. So if you were currently, Bitcoin's at about 82,000. It's kind of like following that. And if they expect liquidity to start increasing towards Q2 and Q3, then Bitcoin could recover. So that's what, follows on the analysis of where Bitcoin is right now, where Bitcoin could go, and what most people are saying in terms of Bitcoin's price trajectory. As it relates to right now in the short term liquidity from the Fed, we know that they're going to be stopping or slowing down QT, right? So that's quantitative tightening. This balance sheet runoff kind of thing. But don't get your hopes up about any sort of QE, right? Yeah. Because QE will not happen until interest rates, Fed fund rates go to zero. Right? Okay. So we're not going to have like 2021's kind of like QE money printer, at least from the US, right?
That is true, because while the US is a very long way from stimulating, a couple of other major economies are talking about just that. China, which we mentioned on the show a few months ago now, they are flooding the market with stimulus. Here we are. Yes, $179 billion worth of bonds.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably going to increase because the fact that China recently, like yesterday, went into their inflation data came out and it went into negative territory. So deflation.
Wow.
The Japanification of China could be coming forth. And that basically means they're going to be one more likely to stimulate, right? So that's more money printer coming out there, and then another, which is even more shocking than Chinese stimulus, is what's going on in Europe.
Yeah.
In Germany.
This is absolutely fascinating. And this is kind of tied in, isn't it, to like this shifting in the global order that we're seeing now, which is a whole sort of geopolitics thing, which we won't get into here because that can get a bit spicy. But it is extraordinary. Like Europe now seems to be heading towards rearmament. Germany has removed this debt break in order to spend, I think it's up to €1 trillion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
On defense.
And defense and infrastructure. And they've also, not just that, which is crazy to think this, but Germany's actually gone to their EU partners and said we have to be more liberal when it comes to deficit spending. As well, we should be consider spending more on European defense, which is quite crazy if you know the history of the Eurozone and everything. We've got an interesting image here. I mean, if you know anything from the 2010s about what happened in the Southern Europe and then how Germany basically tramped down on any sort of economic stimulus because of austerity.
Yeah, but I guess the mood in German political circles now is like, well, this austerity thing that hasn't worked. Like the German economy has been really struggling. It's obviously highly reliant on manufacturing, heavy industry. And so, if they can get the economy moving again by building, but through defense contracts, because there are some big German defense
Rheinmetall, which, and if you look at the price of the stocks of European defense manufacturers, that's been the ultimate risk off asset. You've seen this likes of BAE Systems, Thales, and Rheinmetall, crazy. But of course, now the one more question on the macro front is economic growth and the job market, and this is because of all the stuff that's happening with regards to job cuts. Now, I don't know if you saw this last week; it was all over Twitter. This Atlanta Fed came out with an estimate of their Fed now of a negative 2.8% growth in Q1 of 2025, which is kind of scary. And all of this is related to Doge, right? The job cutting initiatives by Elon Musk and co. And the U.S. government is the single biggest employer in the U.S., right?
Wow. Yeah. And we've got a chart somewhere, haven't we, of just where so much US GDP growth actually comes from. And you've circled it there. So around 50% in total comes from a mixture of government spending and consumer spending on healthcare. Yeah,
it's crazy, which we know expensive. It's expensive in the US. So this is why worries about growth are coming and jobs are coming from the job cuts in the government. And then there have been numerous financial wizards like Steve Cohen, Jamie, who said that he's worried about toxic macro conditions right now. Jamie Dimon sold out like $200 million worth of JP Morgan shares about a month ago. Warren Buffett is sitting on mountains of cash. So they all worried. And then, there's polymarket odds of recession at 40%, as well as JP Morgan, who are not, came out with an estimate of 40% chance. So that's what's going on there on the growth side.
Owing to extreme US policies.
Well, it is uncertainty, right?
Okay. Uncertainty. Yeah. And that kind of takes us back to what we were talking about at the beginning, wasn't it? This sense that everything is just so chaotic now because we don't know whether there is really a coordinated policy going on behind the scenes with Trump. It could just be a complete mess and everyone's sort of, kind of making it up as they go along, or it could be a calculated move. I personally think there's some weight behind this, a calculated move to spread uncertainty, to bring markets lower, to maybe induce a recession that can then, you can then pull out of that in time for the midterms.
Yeah, I mean, it's not also like this is a good point as well. It's also around right now, short term, the markets are spazzing out because of the uncertainty and all that. But if you look at it from the perspective of reducing deficit spending, that's reducing the interest rate on debt, reducing the 10-year yield, reducing the cost for consumers, and also onshoring all of the manufacturing back to the US, stopping imports because of the tariffs, and then also potentially using tariffs as a tool. And this is another theory I've seen to encourage Chinese buyers of US bonds. This is what I've seen potentially Spesant is doing. So there's a lot of machinations in the back of the scenes. I think there is some sort of a method to the madness, although it's a blunt instrument. There is we hope so, right? Maybe we read in, maybe we just just trying to read too much into it. But I think that there's many people who've said so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it is a bit of a tough time out there in the markets. It's it's pretty dicey, especially in crypto. But obviously, as we've said, it's not just crypto that's suffering. Regular stock markets are suffering as well. So it's interesting. However, if you are feeling adventurous and you're thinking about buying crypto at this time, I know a lot of people are, then the best place to do it is with the first of our brand partners, and that is Binance. As you see, we've got an exclusive 20% trading fee discount for life. Plus you're eligible for a $600 bonus, sign-up bonus as well. So that is with Binance, proud brand partners of ours. Link in the description below.
Exactly. And once you've got your altcoins, you're going to want to secure it on one of the safest hardware wallets around. This is, of course, the Ledger devices, the Ledger Stacks and Ledger Flex. You've just done a video. You opened one of these recently.
I've been playing around. This is the Flex. I've been playing around with the Flex. I've been playing around with Stacks as well. I just want to remind people now, this is, particularly these Ledger wallets, but hardware wallets in general are really, really easy to set up. So if I don't know how many people have said to me in the past, yeah, I've got a hardware wallet, but I don't really know how to use it, etc. It could not be easy. I was able to set it up, and I'm a complete moron. So if I can do it, literally anyone can. But these are really, really good devices, really lovely. And they've also, I want to point out the fact that they've both got these large touch screens. And what's great about these is that you can see the full transaction you're signing. So you're not just blindly signing anything. You can check the address against the address that you're sending to. It's really, really clear. And that is a really good feature that these new Ledger devices have. So we are very proud to have Ledger as another of our brand partners. Buy it on Binance, secure it on a Ledger.
And speaking of our brand partners, one more, there is obviously Arkham Intelligence. Now, you guys know we introduced them last week. There's some really interesting stuff Arkham released over the past week in terms of data, right? So Arkham Intelligence, for one, did you guys know that Donald Trump round tripped 20 million on meme coins? So he's one of us.
One of us, Donald. One of us.
Well, I mean, I personally haven't round tripped 20 million on meme coins.
What were you, 40 million?
40 million. Way more than that. But yeah, they've also released a lot of other information last week. There was information on the Sol unlocks, the US government, movements of coins, Lazarus, money laundering, and more. And one of the most interesting things they released as a new release last week was this KOL wallet, KOL wallets tag. So essentially, all the KOLs who have over 100,000 subscribers on Twitter, you can go to this tag, which will be linked to below, and you can now see their crypto wallets and track their movements.
It's interesting because I wasn't considering someone like Vitalik as a KOL, because I've got this image of KOLs being these sort of morons on YouTube. But then actually, Vitalik is a key opinion leader.
He is.
He's a true KOL.
I mean, the term in itself is a good term. It's just that it's been bastardized by too many.
It's been applied to completely the wrong people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the influencer class basically took over. We are not just influencers; we are key opinion leaders.
Yeah, I should say though that like all of us, working in this sector, none of us ever chose to be called KOLs. Suddenly, we just found ourselves being referred to as it.
Please don't call me that.
I cannot stand that term. Mind you, it's just as bad as influencer anyway. Okay, so that is Arkham, our third and newest brand partner. So it's great to have them on board.
Yeah, they've also got an exchange, by the way, which is in US states now. So they've registered in many US states. So we also have a discount there for you guys of 50% off trading fees for the first month if you sign up down below with the link. So if you're in the US and you're looking at buying some altcoins, Arkham Exchange could be it for you.
Okay, well, that leads us nicely on to last week's top performers. It was an interesting one this week. Very interesting one. Okay, so first off, Nick, what was the big performer of last week?
Bitcoin Cash, BCH. I mean, I potentially a counter trade for BTC. Who knows, man? I
was looking around on this. I did see some mention of the fact that usage metrics had gone up. There was sort of apparently BCH was being used sort of more than normal, but I found it very hard to verify that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did just strike me. It's like, well, yeah, maybe it is just counter trade.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Next one up is ENA. Now, obviously, the Bybit hack was a few weeks ago now, but ENA did really well to survive that. And I think there's, some good vibes around the coin sort of on the back of that. This was the ultimate sort of battle test of a DeFi protocol, because they did have exposure to Bybit, but they rode it out without any problems. And they also recently announced another $100 million raise.
Yeah, there we go. 100 million. I think this came out earlier this year. From lots of TradFi, from Franklin Templeton, and other big VCs, Fidelity Investments. So doing well for them. Yeah. Another coin.
Now this is one. These next two are ones that you don't see very often on the top gainers. The first one is Pax Gold, Pax G.
Pax G, yeah.
It is. I don't think we've ever seen a gold-backed token, a tokenized gold in the top performers.
Yeah, well, I mean, gold has been crushing it. This is interesting. This chart here. This is basically the chart of Bitcoin versus gold since the Bitcoin's last cycle high, 2021 November. Take a look at this. Gold has literally been a better performer than Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I mean, it's mental, right?
That is, you don't see that very often.
You don't see it off. It's just long and steady. It's just been growing and growing. Yeah, Peter Schiff he's getting the last laugh here. 55% since the all-time high in 2020, Bitcoin's all-time high in 2021, whereas 26% for Bitcoin.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, so Pax Gold is top performer this week. I mean, it gives you an idea of how tough it is out there. And the other one, the other top performer of this week, the only other top performer is Tether Gold.
Yeah.
XAUT.
Yep.
For exactly the same reasons. So this week's top gainers, I think, is something of a collector's item, Nick, because you don't often see gold as a top gainer.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless it comes again, unless it becomes a regular thing, and we basically Bitcoiners are sitting here like every single week, the best performers gold and all the that would be the core.
Oh, please
no.
Hopefully, we'll look back in a few months' time. We'll go, do you remember when gold was one of the top performers? Oh, what a time. Hope. Okay, well, we can only hope. All right, let's have a look at some tweets of the week. First up, we have this one from Matt Hogan. Is always good for a tweet. Always has a good take. What we're seeing today at the European Central Bank in Germany and in China is the instant reaction to any sort of economic volatility is to print money. This is why all roads lead to Bitcoin.
Damn straight. Yeah, exactly. Liquidity. Next one. This is from Andre Cronje, of course, the man behind Sonic and the DeFi degen legend. If SBF wasn't in prison, he would be at the crypto summit in Washington today.
It's funny because it's true. And it's kind of bananas to think that, isn't it? But he'd be there with his suit all crumpled, hair all over the place, and
Donald.
Oh man, crazy. Okay, this next one comes from the people at the White House announcing the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Donald Trump has got a really sort of manic grin on there.
Basically, okay, I just got to smile for the camera. Okay. These guys, I can't wait to get these guys on my office. Goddamn Bitcoin. What is this Bitcoin? Do you really believe in this Bitcoin? You should never sell your Bitcoin. Is that true? Whatever the hell matters.
Is that what they say? I don't know. That's
Have fun with your crypto.
Have fun.
But I mean, we make fun of it. And we obviously, I think that it's important to just like, when in doubt, zoom out, have perspective. If someone was to show you this tweet last year in the midst of the war on crypto in Biden's admin, you would have a US president sitting there signing an executive order on the digital asset, stockpile.
With one of the PayPal mafia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Would you have believed that? And what would you have thought?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. I mean, the past 2 months, we're a bit jaded, all this kind of stuff, price action. But that's why it's important to have perspective on these things. Just zoom out and feel like, what would you have thought?
Yeah.
So
this is the ironic thing, that at the moment, the long-term picture for crypto is probably as strong as it's ever been.
Yeah.
But it's just so bad in the short term that, I mean, even like you and I, Nick, we've been in this game for a while now. Even you and I talking, in the office and stuff, we're both feeling kind of bearish. Even though we both have the same long-term outlook, we're still sort of coming into the office and being like, oh God, we're around 80K again. When's it going to pick up? Like this, it's so easy for these sort of negative sentiments to overtake you. But yeah, as Nick says, if in doubt, zoom out.
Yep.
And one more tweet of the week comes from Bob Lucas. Now, this is a good take as well.
Yeah, it's a good take. And it's important also, like we often lose sight of the real purpose and the real, why Bitcoin was created, right? Because we're all looking for the massive TradFi adoption of Bitcoin, pump our bags, all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, it was created for completely different purpose, right? Not to be controlled and owned by BlackRock ETFs, right?
Yeah. Do you know, it's interesting. I've just finished reading last week the Genesis book, which is by Aaron Van Weerdem, who is a real authority on all things Bitcoin. And it's as you would imagine, it's about how Bitcoin came about. So it dives into the kind of monetary theory behind it. So it looks at things like Austrian economics, Friedrich Hayek, Milton Friedman, all that sort of stuff. It also looks at the cypherpunks and the kind of movement for online privacy that came before. And then obviously, and the early sort of attempts to create a neutral form of digital money, a permissionless form of digital money. And then, of course, the final chapter of the book is about Bitcoin and it being unleashed upon the world. Really interesting book. I really do recommend it. The Genesis book, it's called. But yeah, I remember getting to the end and thinking, wow, this original thing, this thing that was outlined in the white paper, this peer-to-peer electronic cash has become such a different beast. And okay, it was 16 years ago, so it's perhaps not all that surprising that it has changed and it has evolved and it has, if you like, matured. But I think as that tweet from Bob Lucas points out, it is really worth sort of thinking about, maybe not all aspects of that metamorphosis, that change are good. It certainly is very, very different from what Satoshi Nakamoto first put out.
Word. Cool. So let's take a look at some coins to watch. So today there's a really important launch. It's the mainnet launch of Movement Labs. So Move, you'll see Move token has reacted quite positively to it. Obviously, Move is it's a collection of Move-based chains by Ethereum Layer 2, EVM compatible, and the project. I've also done an interview with the CEO Rushi Manche over on the More Coin Bureau. You guys can obviously follow the More Coin Bureau with our QR code right over here. Behold the holy QR code. Behold. So go and sign up there to watch more Coin Bureau. We've got a lot of interesting content come out there, including your unboxing video. We've got some videos, some more interviews, and then also we did a video last week reacting to TikTok financial advice TikToks, not just any TikToks. We clarified. We don't watch TikTok. You're not watching TikToks like dances and guys grading their TikTok dance. We're watching financial advice TikTok.
We don't just sit around looking at TikTok. I have watching Gen Alpha dance. No, we're better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Move. And yeah, as you said, mainnet launched today.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And then Solana, we've got CME futures launching on the March the 17th.
Okay, so 1 week from today. Now this is interesting because obviously a CME futures product so far has been the kind of necessary precursor to a spot US ETF.
Exactly. Yeah.
The SEC is obviously a very different beast from what it was just a few months ago, and certainly when those last spot crypto ETFs were approved. But nevertheless, we have yet to see a spot crypto ETF go through without having first had a CME futures product. So that I think is very interesting.
Great harbinger of more things to potentially come.
Yeah. Dates for the diary?
Dates for the diary. Like I said previously, March the 12th, a very important day, CPI data. The 3% was the previous number, and then 2.9% is expected. And then the day after, we've got initial jobless claims. So 220K expected versus 221K previous. And then, of course, PPI is on the same day, and PPI is obviously it's not as important. It's not as much focus on it as the CPI, but there's 3.5% previous and 3.3% consensus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's have a look at what.
One more thing, guys. Oh, by the way, if you want to keep up to date on the weekly, every single Sunday we send out what to watch. Coins to watch, as well as dates for the diary, and like a macro and crypto calendar over on the Coin Bureau Insider Telegram channel. So if you're not subscribed to that yet, you can do so right now. Go and download Telegram, sign up to the Coin Bureau Insider Telegram.
Okay. Yeah. Nick, I have some news for you. I've noticed this a few times with Monday live streams. The price is once again going down. We're now at 81.5K.
Oh God.
So just a few people pointing that out in the comments. It's not our fault, guys.
It's not, man. It's Monday. Well, to be fair, guys, as well, let's be honest. The equity markets in the US are opening in about half an hour, right? So, and the futures, at least when I was checking, the futures on the S&P and the Nasdaq, all of them were lower. So obviously, when US markets open and then people continue dumping their equity and they readjust their portfolios, and you also have the ETFs. You remember the ETFs don't trade on weekends; they readjust their portfolios. I would expect there's probably going to be outflows today as well. So like we say, it's macro stuff driving this. It's not really, but it's Bitcoin getting caught in the. So we could still potentially come back at some point and fill the gap.
Yeah, although people are pointing out in the chat as well that it's already open because, of course, they've had daylight savings.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
You guys do daylight savings, man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Well.
So then that answers it then. Sorry.
This daylight savings thing, it really annoys me.
Yeah.
It used to be for farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
It used to be to give farmers extra time to get in the harvest, and now it solely exists to annoy me.
Exactly, because you have to remember all the times. You have to remember also not all the times in terms of time zones, but which time zones when, because it's not only in the US, because it hasn't changed in Europe either. So
yeah, so it doesn't change. I think the UK, the clocks go forward soon, but I don't think they've gone forward yet. So it's doubly confusing.
But anyways, that explains why Bitcoin is tanking. Markets probably open lower.
So everyone in the chat, direct your hate not at crypto or each other, as you seem to be doing. Direct it at daylight saving time instead. Let's hate on that.
Nasdaq is opened lower quite a lot.
Okay, let's have a look and see just what people have been saying in the comments. Stocks are tumbling after President Trump didn't rule out the US entering a recession.
Yeah, I saw him saying this. I don't think I mentioned it when it came to like in the sense that the strategy doesn't care about stocks, doesn't care about growth, because short term, what these measures, especially the reduction in deficit spending, which is needed to reduce the deficit, is not good for growth. Right? Especially firing tens of thousands of government employees is not good for growth. But if the ends are to reduce the deficit and have a more healthier, less debt-ridden economy with lower interest rates and less dependent on other countries for importation, for developing other kind of goods, they can, build their own goods. So if the long term, we're saying, a year to 4 years, and Trump only, if that's his strategy, I don't think he's caring about the markets, right? He said so. He said the markets are controlled by globalists, and he said there will be short-term pain. So he doesn't care. Okay.
Meanwhile, something else we didn't touch on is how well eggs are doing. Ooh. Selling eggs for BTC, that's a good trade.
There we go. That's the alpha right there, man.
Yeah, that's what you tune in for. JC18 bringing the alpha there. I don't know if this is just egg prices in the US, because I think there's been this outbreak of avian flu. This is why egg prices are going bananas.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of an odd metaphor, isn't it? But yeah, so anyone selling eggs for BTC in the US now, killing it. Meanwhile, Yip Yap says, I'm from London and it's finally sunny. Hard to be too down. I like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Look at the bright side of life, man.
Exactly.
Literally the bright side of life.
Exactly, folks. Spring is on the way. The winter is over, certainly in the northern hemisphere. It's
summer's on its way here. Yeah. That's something to look for.
Yeah, 50 odd degrees. Someone also pointing out this thing of tariffs. I think this is something that gets forgotten. I'm not sure if this figure is necessarily accurate, but Canada's had 200% tariffs on the US for a while.
This is true, especially on dairy. I know this for a fact. It did. Specifically to protect some, because Canadian dairy farmers, this is true. But it's still a kind of like it's using that as an example for the reason for all the wide covered tariffs is kind of like similar to the example of using the example of drugs coming from the border on the north. You know, it's minuscule in terms of like taking a sledgehammer to the entire broad trade agreements with Canada, right? So.
Yeah. And I think it applies to a lot of other countries and territories as well. Like, there have been tariffs on US imports, exports from the US as well. So
EU's also got also on dairy, I think EU and a lot of EU farmers as well. Like they also, the EU's also been very bad in trade, especially they've done a lot of dumping in Africa because of their subsidies. They subsidize their farmers and their farmers dump their goods in Africa and then the African farmers go poor, right? So,
So, there could be a sense that these tariffs, although they're causing all sorts of mayhem at the moment, maybe they will level things up a bit in the longer term. Interesting take from Mech 7777. My take is that the price is so low so that the rich and institutions can buy at a discount. Then Trump and Musk will tweet something and everything will go up.
What did you talk in terms of stocks or in crypto or everything?
No, I think, stocks and crypto.
I don't think so. I don't think, like I said, the goal is not to basically, the goal of Trump is to the goal is to basically help the average American out. If the strategy is to reduce rates, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll need to have the markets need to adjust lower for that, right? Similarly, if there is going to be a recession, and recession will come, and potentially there's also the theory that if the recession does come, then Jerome will be more inclined to want to cut deeply and then turn on the taps, money print to go burr. That is a possibility as well. If we do go to zero, he emergency cuts down to zero on the Fed's fund rate, and then they turn on the money printer and then helps him out. I mean, do you think if Trump really wanted to get Jerome to go and do money printer, he wouldn't make him do it? If there was
very true. Yeah. Very true. It's also there's a lot more to it than that. Have you noticed as well that Trump is down I think 110 World Liberty Financial is down 110 million.
Yeah,
its crypto
exactly, on
holdings.
his crypto holdings. It hasn't helped him too much. And when they announce something, this World Liberty Financial, when they announce these sort of partnerships they're doing with any sort of cryptocurrency projects, the impact it has is minuscule.
Yeah.
Like last week, they announced the SUI, and the pump lasted for less than a few hours.
Well, there was talk that SUI was going to be included in this digital asset stockpile.
No, not that. I think there was it was like a misnomer with regards to it was only for the World Liberty Financial.
Oh, okay.
Some sort of a stockpile, whatever. But yeah, I mean that had like literally 4-hour impact and then down again.
Yeah. Do you think anyone's told Trump that he's down 110 million?
Well, to be
He's
fair,
paying attention.
I don't think he is. I think he's just looking at at what he's got in them, because Trump meme coin itself, like still like if he's a holder there.
Yeah.
Supply 80% of what I know it's down a lot, but you know.
Oh, the Trump meme coin. That's not even the worst of them. Okay, we'll finish off with one from Nicky Bagaro. You use the free weights, Nick? Dumbbell curlies? Are you a free weights man?
What the hell? What the hell? How did it even? Where did that even come from? Bro, is that okay? I would never wear that. Bro.
God. Oh dear.
My God.
Oh,
Okay.
dear.
Yeah, I do use the free weights, bro. Dumbbell curlies, yes.
Welcome to the Coin Bureau live stream. We're talking about crypto today.
Dubs, yes.
Oh dear. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, well, I think on that note, I think we should leave it there. Can we bring up that picture just to end it with, just to sear it into people's brains?
God.
We will be back next week. Thanks everyone for watching.
Cheers.
See you again.
Bye.
How do you make $1 million on crypto? Start with $2 million. Beavis and Butthead Law. Nice work, team. Very funny as well. Great stuff, guys. Thanks, guys. You are great. We're back. Oh, we're so back. It's over. Oh, we're so over. Guy doing a bench press is a top signal. Stay funny, guys. We're back. Just kidding. We're back. Oh, we're so back. It's over. Oh, we're so over. We're back. Oh, we're so back. It's over. Oh, we're so over.
Take that, He-Man. It's gonna